Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Futures with me, Anthony Crudele. We have a fantastic show for you today. I will be joined by futures legend Chris Hehmeyer, functional medicine physician Dr. Jessica Hehmeyer, crypto trader Brian Tehako, trader and performance coach Dan Hodgman, and last but not least, futures trader Dani Sittloh. Welcome to Trading Futures. Chris, thank you for joining me, my friend.
Good to see you, Anthony.
Great to see you. So Chris, Bitcoin isn't dead yet, is it?
Bitcoin is definitely not dead.
Nope.
That's for sure. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm certainly not a legend. I've just been around for a long time, and I've seen a lot of different things in this business in the 40-something years I've been in it. And this one is one that is different than any of the others and as big, if not bigger. The price of Bitcoin, of course, had a huge run up with a lot of retail buying. And then it crashed is the word I think most people would use when it went from 20,000 to 2,000. And it followed that classic, the price followed on a chart, that classic euphoria of what happens when something's new. Then it crashes. Then there's a long, slow, steady increase in price, which is what happened to the NASDAQ, of course, back in the year 2000. But that price action, I think, indicates that Bitcoin's here to stay with a lot of these other digital assets. And by the way, the Japanese recently passed a law that mandated that the term be crypto asset. Crypto asset, digital asset, cryptocurrencies. The nomenclature, as I like to say, is very confused about all that, but they're all basically the same thing. They are assets that came out of the cryptography community, mostly therefore the record keeping goes onto a blockchain, and these assets can be bought and sold, and Bitcoin being the most popular and the one that people get the most. Bitcoin is more like digital gold than it really is like a currency in the way that most Americans think of it. And of course now they're trading futures at the CME on Bitcoin, and the volume continues to grow almost day by day.
I want to talk a little bit about your fund. You are the first person that I knew of that started a crypto fund. How's that going, and how have you stayed convicted through this bubble?
Thank you for asking. We created an index, a proprietary index, that the methodology goes back to May of 2013, started at 1.00. It was just Bitcoin at the time. And the methodology, we rebalance the index once a month, and it allows for the inclusion of constituent coins or constituent coins to go out of the index. It's cap weighted. Each coin has to be 1% of the market cap for a coin to come into the index. So this index rebalances depending on where the public will go with regards to a cryptocurrency. Right now, Bitcoin's about 60%. It was 100%, it went down to about 40%, and now it's about 60%. The index is about 80% correlated to Bitcoin so far, but of course, there are other coins on the horizon that could change that. The index will change and adapt every month. Our pool, which is a NFA registered commodity pool, is designed as a passive pool to track the index. It's not a managed product, it's a passive product. It tracks the index.
You mentioned other cryptos. Before I let you go, Chris, the biggest news in the crypto space right now, Libra. What do you think about it?
It looks to me, this is one guy's take, that Libra is a real fork in the road. This so far cryptocurrency thing, Bitcoin, most of the public and governments globally have thought, okay, that's cute. Libra is a very serious new player in this game. And the question is whether governments are going to try to control that or whether the public thinks, wow, this is great. And I'm not offering an opinion on it. It's a very big thing. The central banks have, in many ways, by creating so much stimulus and fiat currency, used a lot of their credibility with the public. If the public were to start to use something like Libra, it will make a big impact, and it's stay tuned.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Stay tuned. Now I'm going to go and sit down with one of your crypto traders to look at some charts. So hang with us a little bit.
Brian's really good at it.
Yeah, we have your wife at the end of the show today, who's fantastic. By the way, we're going to talk a little bit about vision of vitality. So next up, everybody, I will speak with one of Chris's crypto traders to learn how he trades Bitcoin and Bitcoin futures. Stay tuned.
This is my headquarters. This is where I trade and manage my portfolio. Since I added futures, I have access to the oil markets and gold markets. Okay, I'm plugged into equities, trade confirmed. And I have global access 24/7, meaning I can do what I need to do. Then I can focus on what I want to do. Visit learnfuturestoday.com to see what adding futures can do for you.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm now joined by Brian Tehako. Brian, thank you for joining me. Walk us through how you trade Bitcoin futures.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. So we look at Bitcoin as a very momentum type of movement. It's very volatile. We always want to stay on the right side of the trend. So I look at 5, 20, 50, and 200 moving averages on a short-term, mid-term, and long-term to try to always stay on the right side of the trend. We also gauge Asian buying and selling through Tether.
How important is it for Bitcoin traders to be watching Tether?
I think it's very important. Asia has been driving the demand for cryptocurrencies since the beginning. So we really look at Tether of inflows and outflows to hopefully drive patterns that we can see in Bitcoin. So using the combination of both the charts and Tether, we can hopefully gauge that type of movement for the day, for the week, for the month.
So you think it's a leading market?
Yes.
You talked about how you use 4 moving averages, 5, 20, 50, 200. So what I did was I pulled up a chart on TradeStation, and I wanted to have you just walk us through some examples. This is just, I think, 1 day or maybe 2 days of Bitcoin and how you would go about trading it.
Right. So we can take just kind of in the middle of the chart here. This would be a great example. We look for our crosses, which is our 5 crossing through the 20, which we have noted here, red and blue. So we look for that cross. That would be our first signal that we're actually trending higher. Once we get that cross, that's where we would start purchasing. We would ride that all the way up until we start getting settles below. That would kind of give us that nervousness. Once we start crossing, once this cross happens and we settle below, that would be our exit point.
So you look for it to cross the 5 to cross the 20 first, and then when it starts to close below it, that's your exit?
Well, you're settling once you get settles below. So you have your open and close bars. If you settle below that closed bar, that's kind of my first notice of maybe I should exit, maybe I should take some off. When we cross back through, that's definitely your exit point with a settle below that.
Okay, so you don't have set targets.
Nope.
You
no
wait
set
for,
target.
you're reacting to these moving averages.
Yep.
What about the other ones, the 50 and the 200? How much of a role do they play?
They play a bigger role in your longer term. Shorter term, they're a little tough because they take so long to cross. But if you are riding it, like here, you can see the cross through your 50-day moving average, which should reconfirm even more that you're bullish. If you get a cross above your 200 and stay, that's even more confirmation of that. And you can really tell that the trend is building.
Everybody knows I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're wrong? If you see this cross, you buy it. I mean, here it looks good, but what happens if it tanks right afterwards? Where's your stop?
Your stop is always, as a trader, is your risk. So whatever you're risking on that trade, if it's a notional value, if it's a percentage, that should always be your first risk of setting your stops, especially in a market like Bitcoin that is so volatile.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what you're saying is that you don't have an exact price because you don't know how far the trade could go, so you have a dollar amount.
Exactly.
One last question before we start looking into execution is position sizing. Is position sizing always the same, or does it vary based upon the look?
Position sizing is usually always the same for me because it's a standard set cross, right? So there's nothing that's going to vary on that. Again, using your account size is the best execution. For us, I'm always a standard set size to enter a trade and exit a trade.
Awesome. All right, everybody, now that we know how Brian's process works, next up he will show us how he executes his trades. Stay tuned.
Why trade with TradeStation? It's innovative, easy to use, and and totally freaking sweet. With powerful tools to track and execute your trades and low per trade commissions on stocks, futures, and options. Upgrade your trade at tradestation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Brian Tehako is still with me. Brian, I tell everybody all the time, it doesn't matter what strategy you have, you need to know how to execute it. Execution is very important. You talked to me in the prior segment about how you're using the longer term moving averages, the 200 period and the 50 period on the longer term charts. And then you said you work your way back to the shorter term for execution. So at top we have Bitcoin futures. On the bottom we have Bitcoin. So walk us through how you use these moving averages, and also tell us what situations that you would use Bitcoin over Bitcoin futures.
Sure. So our top chart here, this is a great example of how we execute during the day. I come in every day and kind of look at where we are on the daily side. So this would be a prime example. We're crossed here over our moving averages, and we are settling. I think we go up to like 14 days in a row where we're bullish. So every day I have to come in and just assume I got to try to be on the long side today. And then I work myself going backwards from there. So I'm looking for all this. This is your move all the way straight up, and you can see we finally settled and broke below it. That, of course, would either be your exit that day when we traded below there, and then we reassess. You can again see we started this bullish pattern again with a pretty good move. I mean, when you crossed here, you're basically buying 8,000s. We've now traded up to 9,400, and you can't fade that, right? We cannot go into the day and go, I'm looking to short this market. So that's kind of how we start our day off, looking at that daily, making sure we know, work our way backwards, 60-minute, 5-minute.
Yeah, so the daily sets the tone. You look to see where they are, and when you're seeing with these closes above the moving averages, you come in that day and you say, hey, you know what, we got to be wary of being short. We're above everything.
Exactly.
So you said 60-minute was next. That's what we pulled up. Bitcoin futures on the top, Bitcoin on the bottom.
Yeah, so Bitcoin futures are a great product. We actually just hit new contract highs of volume. We have the biggest open interest we've ever had. And we use them on a daily basis, and we can spread between the two, which is called basically a basis trade, cash versus spot. The issue that with Bitcoin is versus any other futures, it never closes, right? So we're 24/7, 365 days a year where the futures close. They close on the weekends, they close for an hour in the gap. So you're exposed throughout a whole weekend to have those on. So we'd rather have the spread on than just have the naked contracts on.
So a lot of spreading for you.
A lot of spreading, yep.
Last but not least, the 5-minute chart, going back to the beginning where you showed us the example about your process. So now we know daily's bullish, 60 minutes bullish. So here, what would you be looking at in the 5-minute?
You can clearly see it. We're bullish.
Yeah.
Still there.
So what I love about your strategy, your process, is you have the same indicators, moving averages, on the daily, 60 and 5-minute. You don't change it. You have it show you on the top the longer term first. You work your way down, and you know the direction you're gonna be going, and you just execute.
I learned very early age as a trader, keep it simple, consistent, don't make it too difficult.
One other thing I want to talk about is you mentioned that you're doing a lot of spreading. So we know that Bitcoin futures is 5 Bitcoin. Are you always hedging it even, or are you weighing more on one side versus the other?
Most of the time we're always 5-to-1 ratio. So 5 spot markets to 1 future, and we scale up from there. Once in a while we'll take some off, take some out, put some extras on if we have a really good idea of which direction. But most of the time we're always 5-to-1, perfectly hedged.
So when you're going to put that hedge on, are you all in at once, or do you tend to scale into that hedge?
Usually scale. Bitcoin, the biggest issue we have with it is it's illiquid. There's not a ton of volume, so you have to be really careful on your sizing, how you get in, how you execute, making sure you're working an edge and getting in and out of it, so you can't come in and bang out a full position size at one time.
Ease your way into it.
Exactly.
Great stuff, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing your process and how you execute trades. Next up, everybody, we will hear from Dan Hodgman with Top Steps Moment of the Week. Stay tuned.
Why trade futures with TradeStation? You can trade over 80 products from home, work, or on the go with a powerful, easy-to-use interface and prices that let you focus on padding your wallet, not emptying it. Upgrade your trade at TradeStation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm now joined by Dan Hodgman, trader and performance coach. Dan, what's Top Steps moment of the week?
Anthony, this week we're going to talk about one of the most uncomfortable things in trading, and that's taking a loss. But it's inevitable. If you're gonna trade, you're gonna take losses, and so we just got to learn how to take losses properly. You talk about all the time. Know where your out is, whether you're in the profit zone or where's your risk. Where am I going to take my loss and move on to the next trade? And so today we're going to actually talk about one of our funded traders. This is the greatest thing about my job is I get to work with new traders all the time coming into this industry. And today, Corey was looking for a couple breakouts back on June 17th. We had a lot going on. I call it the effects of a tweet, and the equity markets really rallied nicely off the open. And Corey was trying to catch a little bit of the breakout towards the end, and unfortunately she missed, but she set herself up to take two great chances, and she had made some really nice trades on it.
All right, so show us, okay, so what market are we looking at here?
So we're looking at the NASDAQ here,
5-minute chart?
and we've got the 5-minute chart to really break things down and get a better view of everything. And as you guys can see, market opens up, and I've talked about it before. I'll continue to talk about it. Settlement price is always a great place to be looking. The market opens above settle. It's going to do one of two things: work its way closer, or springboard right off that settlement price. It springboards off. Corey tries to get in a little bit late, but she set everything up for herself to find that entry point, and she kept her stops extremely tight and looked for a big opportunity. Unfortunately, this trade didn't work for her. She took a $125 loss, but we're not risking a lot in these types of trades. And if we can manage that risk, we're setting ourselves up really, really nicely. And so she went on and actually did it again a little bit later in the day. The market showed some weakness. That's what we want to find. When we're trying to find these breakout trades, we want to find that weakness. She found a little weakness here, and unfortunately her stop was just a little too tight before the market took off, but she's found that weakness, so I think the entry was really great, and we're going to go ahead and work with her and find better places to set our stops there.
So is that her strategy?
Exactly. She's always looking for those breakout moves, and as a day trader, we don't need to catch the whole thing. We just want to find our little chunks. It's not our job. We don't need to manage that direction. Let's find the direction, let the market tell us what it's going to do, and then we look for our entry points.
I'm curious, this dollar amount loss, is that the amount that she risks on every trade?
Correct. She's in a smaller account, so she's not looking to put too much money up, and new into the industry, so she's managing that risk. And she has a plan that says, I will not lose more than $125 per contract in every trade I'm taking, and that's exactly what she did in each of these trades here.
Last question before we let you go. What's her total loss for the day, if you know it? Because I'm curious how many losses she accumulates before she just turns off the day.
Absolutely. So she actually has a rule that 2 losses in a row is going to shut her down, or $250. So she risks $125 per trade. She took those 2 trades, averaged $125 in a loss, walked away at $250, and lives to trade another day, and that's what we have to do.
That's right, be able to come back tomorrow. What I also like about what Corey did, Corey, if you're watching, is that you didn't jump right back in.
Right.
Right? You waited for the next one.
Looking for that weakness.
That's right.
Absolutely. So a couple lessons in this week's execution. First off, you're always going to have a loss. The smaller they are, the better chances you have to continue trading. The markets aren't going anywhere. No reason we should set ourselves up so we can't trade the next day. Don't judge yourself based off that P&L because as long as you stick within your plan, whether it's a winning day or a losing day, to me, that's a win in your book. And you've always got to find the positives in everyday trading. And discipline. You've got to be disciplined to that plan, and the only way to be disciplined is hold yourself accountable to those rules.
Yeah, no, I love it. Don't judge trades based off of the P&L outcome. You're growing even if you're losing, as long as you stay within the amount that you could afford to lose per day.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Make sure we're here to trade another day.
That's right, my friend. Great stuff as always. Next up, everybody, Dani Sittloh will tell us what's on her radar using Wazzabull. Stay tuned.
This is my headquarters. This is where I trade and manage my portfolio. Since I added futures, I have access to the oil markets and gold markets. Okay, I'm plugged into equities, trade confirmed. And I have global access 24/7, meaning I can do what I need to do. Then I can focus on what I want to do. Visit learnfuturestoday.com to see what adding futures can do for you.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm now joined by Dani Sittloh, Dani, what's on your radar?
Hi, Ann. Thanks. So here we go. Today on our radar is the E-mini Dow. This is a bearish alert, and the Dow trades more than 1 standard deviation below the 5-day moving average. It's a 3-hour outlook, so short term-ish, right? 58% on the downside, 42% on the upside. So pretty good alert, right?
Yeah, and that's a pretty high probability for only a 3-hour outlook. I mean, day traders out there, when you're looking at these alerts, this is an alert that I would like because you have high probability. It's proved that it got below the 5-day moving average by 1 standard deviation, which is a decent move. And like we've always talked about, Dani, you've got both your targets. So even if it doesn't work out to the downside, if it starts to go back up, you've got a target there as well.
Yep, exactly. So let's see the update. Sure enough.
Never bet against the indices. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Bearish alert that you get for the Dow that ends up rallying, like we said, not a surprise. But once again, it reached the target. And what time did it get that target? How long did it take?
So actually, the alert, it shows at the bottom, the alert sounded off, hit at 8:36 a.m., and it targets on the update report that it hit it on 9 a.m., so less than a half an hour.
Oh, so quick.
Right, in a 3-hour outlook. So that also lets me know, okay, maybe in 3 hours I still need to keep an eye on the Dow, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, once again, I think a really good alert for day traders.
Okay, next one. We'll look at corn.
Ooh.
A little ag here, right? Okay, so this one happens to be a bullish alert. Corn trades 2% higher than the previous day's close. 62% on the upside, 38% on the downside. All right, so.
One thing I want to say that sticks out to me though, Dani,
Yeah.
is it's a bullish alert after a 2% higher move.
Right.
And we've talked about on this show and in the podcast a lot about corn and how the fundamentals are supporting bullish moves. And you've got a 62% probability after a 2% move that the market continues higher. Very interesting to me, 2-day outlook for the swing traders, for the corn traders to know that, look at this, if you're looking to fade this rally, you don't have fundamentals behind you and you have an alert supporting more higher prices.
Exactly, and so let's see the update. So actually it hit the target a day later. So earlier than the 2-day outlook.
And half the time.
Yeah, half the time. Yep, and it hit the upside target.
No, yeah, I once again, I think that this is an alert that I would be looking at on the swing side of things, but also, you and I have talked about this, keep it in the back of your mind. If you're day trading and you see after a big move and you're thinking it might be running into resistance, that's a pretty high probability, Dani,
Yep.
that move continues to go higher.
Yep, exactly.
Well, great stuff, Dani. Thank you so much. Next up, everybody, Dr. Jessica Hehmeyer tells us how to take a targeted approach towards your vision of vitality. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the show. To learn more about the charts I use, Wazzabull alerts, the basics of trading futures, and how you can even get funded to trade futures, please visit anthonycrudele.com. Now let me take you right back to trading futures. Welcome back, everybody. Chris is back with us, and we are now joined by the founder of Well Empowered, Dr. Jessica Hehmeyer. Dr. H, welcome to the show.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
So talk to us about how traders could work on their vision of vitality.
Great question. So the first step is getting very clear on your vision of vitality. What kind of health do you want in terms of how you feel throughout your days, your ability to focus and really perform at your best, as well as the numbers that reflect your level of health? So the first step is defining it.
Yeah, I love that about you because I actually went to see you the other day, and you and I have had a lot of discussions on the podcast as well as in person and on the phone, and you always say it's personal.
Yes.
Right? It really depends on what your needs are.
Yes.
So everybody out there, I always tell you, it's not the same for everybody. You have to personalize this. So what does a trader do to identify what's best for them? Do they have to come see someone like you? What do they do?
Good question. So the first step, again, you identify your vision of vitality, and the next step is identifying what you need to do to get there. So One step may be gathering information, and that may include seeing someone like myself, but the chances are that you probably know some things you could do in the absence of even seeing a specialist, some actions you could take to forward your vision of vitality, and maybe some actions you need to stop taking to forward your vision of vitality.
How much of it is mindset, mentality? Is it exercise? Is it diet? If I had to go percentage-wise of it, are those things?
I would say first and foremost is mindset, right? To be consistent with anything requires a real intentionality and commitment to produce an outcome. So first and foremost is knowing why you care about that vision of vitality, really having that perspective firmly in place so that it will fuel you as you start to make changes. That being said, in terms of the changes, it is a mix of everything, and everybody is a little bit different. I would say nutrition, fundamentally speaking, is essential. We eat about 1,500 times a year, so the impact our food has on our genes to express health or not is really tremendous. But it's all really important, and how that the interplay between those different aspects and your health, it's going to be a little bit different depending on your unique makeup, where you're starting from, and where you want to go.
I've said this so many times on social media. I think that when people have this vision of themselves, it overwhelms them, right? Because you always want to go from 1 to 10 because you just want to be there.
Yeah.
Give us the initial step that we
Yeah.
as traders can make to get towards our vision of vitality.
So the initial step is truly identifying one thing that you're going to do and just choosing to do that one thing. Do that one thing today. That could be choosing not to do something or choosing to do something. It could be as simple as I'm going to count the number of sweets I have in a given week so that I can really get that number on my side, right? What gets measured gets managed. It could be as simple as I'm going to walk the mile to work as opposed to taking Uber, right? One really simple action that done by itself over time maybe won't produce the entirety of your vision of vitality, but will be a really strong step in the right direction.
I love it. Now, talk to us before we let you go about Well Empowered, where people can learn more about you.
Yeah, well, I am on Twitter at Well Empowered. I'm on Facebook at You Well Empowered, and conveniently enough, my office is located within Chris's office because he has always put a big value on health, and he extends that to his trading community at Hehmeyer Trading and Investments. So I have the opportunity to work with the traders there and make sure that they're really able to perform to the best of their abilities.
Glad you're on Twitter, but we only have 30 seconds left. Chris, I want to go to you because you've been in this industry for a long time, and I want to know, when did you start to focus on the health side?
Well, I've always sort of thought about it some, but it wasn't until I met Jesse that I started to really understand this outcome-based approach, right? What is the outcome you want? I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to sleep better. I wanted more energy. And those were the outcomes I wanted. And so from that, then there's certain steps you got to take to try to get to that outcome. So that's when I met Jesse.
You're a great influence, Doc. Thank you so much. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in today. You can catch all of the episodes on AnthonyCrudele.com, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. See you next time.